What up, Pokenet? In today's video, we're going to be ranking decks for what you should be playing at the LA Regional coming up next week. So we have a variety of different decks that we've grabbed and that we've been building and practicing with and getting some games in. And we're going to try to rank what we think is going to be the best at LA Regionals. Part of this also has to do with how decks we're doing at Prague, since that's really our best chance at seeing what's working post rotation right now within the meta. So we're going to be ranking these decks, right? We're going to be showing off what we think they are, how well they're going to play. And we'll be sliding them around. And so we're going to start with number one up at the top, and then they're going to work their way down to our last ranked deck. And we're going to move them around as we do this so we can kind of see where we think they rank. And so the first deck we're looking at with this is going to be Enzoroark EX, right? So where do we think Enzoroark is going to rank throughout the tournament? I mean, with Zekrom being out there, Zoroark has gotten way better. But unfortunately, there's too many grass decks around, and so that's part of what's causing it to have some issues right now, right? So, Enzoroark probably going to end up somewhere in the middle bottom, I would say, probably just because of its weakness to grass is going to hurt it a bit. So, Enzoroark is our first deck on the ranking board. And it goes to number one, but only because it's the first one, right? So right now we got Enzoroark ranked in the one spot. The next deck up that we have is going to be Mega Froslass, Mega StarMe, right? So this deck did have success within Prague. I think there's really some good ways to play this that are hard to play against. The fact that you can get into StarMe so fast, I mean, if you're running Salvatore on your first turn going second, you can already be into Mega StarMe and start getting damage out. So this is a deck I think is going to actually have better success than we're expecting. But I do think for the most part we know how to play around like the Mega Froslass, and the fact that we can take possibly 2 KOs to win the game, I know it's usually running Legacy Energy, I think makes some of its meta matchups not as great. However, this could see some really good play. One of the best spread decks we have right now. I think this is replacing a decent amount of Marnie's decks, just because it's better at getting some damage out on the board at times, and starts a little bit faster. So do I think Mega StarMe is going to be better than Enzoroark at the LA Regional? I think the answer to that's no. I think it's still going to be a little bit behind it, but still can play well and be successful when we get there. So the next deck we have up had one of the biggest meta shares on day 2 at Prague, and that's Dragapult Blaziken EX, right? So this build in particular helps us get energy on board. We have a lot of different ways to get into some other attackers, right? It helps us get Lily's Clefairy fired up fast too. And if we start seeing grass decks, that Blaziken can go to work as well. So this is a deck I think is going to have some good success again at the next regional. And this is what Parker's going to be playing at LA. So I hope it does great, right? I hope it can finish in the top, especially at the juniors division. I think it's going to be pretty successful. I think the hardest thing for any Dragapult deck is going to be the Enzoroark. But again, because of the grass decks out there, I think Enzoroark's going to have a little bit of a tough time. So anyways, where do I put Dragapult Blaziken? I certainly think it's going to fall into the first spot at this point. And is it going to stay there for a while? I think the answer to that could be yes. Realistically, Crustle, it doesn't have a great answer for Crustle, so that could be why it struggled just slightly in day 2, where Crustle had had some better matchups. So that's what we're looking at for the first 3 decks that we're looking at today. So the next deck, and again, this one had a pretty decent success rate at getting to day 2 in Prague, is Team Rocket's Mewtwo with Spidops. Okay, so I do love this deck. I played a ton of this right as we got into rotation. I think that you have great matchups across the board. The fact that you can get a Lily's Clefairy in play and take some KOs into Raging Bolts or Dragapult is huge. You know, if we get the Maximum Belt in play, we can be hitting big numbers and taking good KOs. And then the fact that we can also go into a single prize attacker with Spidops. My bad, I got the Tarantula in here instead of Spidops. But the Team Rockets deck with this gives us some pretty good maneuverability. If we want to go into a single prize deck, it helps us with a lot of matchups, and having other Team Rockets Pokemon is certainly helpful too. And because Team Rockets supporters are so strong in the meta right now, that's part of what makes this deck better too. So where does this deck rank? I mean, realistically, it's got to go above Zoroark. It had a better conversion rate at Prague as well, so it's going to bump those down. But I don't think it's going to get above the Blaziken Dragapult at this point. So um, again, I think it had pretty good conversion rate. I think it was like 9% conversion rate. So played fairly well over in Prague. So yeah, we'll see how it does when we get to LA. All right, so the next card, I think we're going to still see. I think it's still going to be successful this next deck, and that's going to be Alakazam, right? I mean, it's so straightforward. It's pretty easy to play. It can take massive KOs for a single prize deck for every card but Pheasantipity. But I do think it's hurting right now because there's so many people out there that know how to play against it. Its matchup with Dragapult is not great, and we know we're going to see a bunch of Dragapults. So while I think Alakazam is still going to be present, we're going to have to be ready to play against it. Do I think it's going to do great in LA? I'm not sure. I think within our ranking system, I mean, unfortunately, right now, it's going to have to go at the bottom. It's going to be below Froslass Mega Froslass, Mega StarMe. Could it move up the board? I don't know. I think, unfortunately, everyone knows how to play against it. We have a lot of people teching cards, you know, with Judge and Unfair Stamp being pretty active. It's going to be hard for it to be great. And I think a lot of decks are also putting Zero-6 Machinations in there. That way we can take really big KO, like we can keep them from taking those big KOs. All right. The next one we're going to be looking at is going to be Raging Bolt. So this is a deck I love playing. I prefer the Raging Bolt with Mega Kangaskhan currently, with the Meowth for our draw support instead of the Noctowl. If you look at Prague, the best Raging Bolt deck was actually an Ian Robb build that finished top 8. I think it was 6 or 5 or 6, somewhere in there. And it was running Raging Bolt with Mega Kangaskhan and Meowths, along with the Wellspring Massive Ogerpon. And it was really successful, did great. So I do think Raging Bolt with Mega Kangaskhan is going to be our best play at LA Regionals for Raging Bolt. Because it can take such massive KOs, it can keep you in against any deck, any 3-prize deck. If we see a lot of Dragapults, it can play well into Dragapult at times. And so I do think that this is a deck that's going to be successful and be fun to play. Realistically, where do I think it ranks within our system? I mean, we're going to be bumping Alakazam down, so I think he's definitely going to be better than StarMe, right? Zoroark, I think we win that matchup most every time within those matchups. So how does it rank with Mewtwo? I think it's going to slide in just below Team Rocket's Mewtwo. Um, Again, I think part of that is a lot of people are playing Lily's Clefairy right now in many different decks. Um, Single prize decks are so hard for Raging Bolt to be successful against. So I think that's why you're seeing some with the Wellspring in it, or some going with like the baby Raging Bolt as well. Um, so right now, I think Raging Bolt's going to be sitting in third as far as what we should be playing at the LA Regionals. Okay, so the next one is going to be Cynthia's Garchomp, right? So again, this had a pretty good conversion rate in Prague. It gives us a lot of hard matchups, right? It's hard to get to the 400 HP for a lot of different decks. You know, being weak to grass again is a little uncomfortable, but it runs pretty straightforward. It hasn't changed a lot from pre-rotation, so a lot of people have some good ways of playing it and are confident with the deck, confident and competent. So Cynthia's Garchomp did really well in Prague. I don't know if it's going to do as well in LA. I think it's going to have some struggles, but I do think it's going to be a tougher deck than we're anticipating. I think it's going to get a little bit more play than we expect as well. So where do I think the Garchomp is going to fit? You know, I think we need to slide Mega StarMe down. I'm going to say that the Garchomp is going to slide in right below the Zoroark. I do think it's going to have some good success. I think we're going to see players playing it that, again, play it really well because they've been playing a pretty similar deck for a while if they were already a Garchomp player. So I think it's going to be successful and find really good ways to play in LA. So next, we are looking at just Dragapult, right? So Dragapult had the biggest meta share in Prague at 22% Dragapult, any variation of Dragapult. With this, we're talking about just Dragapult, right? Where we're not running it with Monkey Dory, we're only running it with Monkey Dories. We don't have Dusclops or Duskulls. We don't have Blazikens. We're not running it with the Dudunsparce. And so this deck has been really successful, done really well. Do I think it's going to be better than Dragapult with Blaziken? Do I think it's better than the Team Rockets deck? Where do I think just Dragapult falls in line here? I mean, it's obviously going ahead of Alakazam, Mega StarMe. That's going to be falling down. I also believe it's better than Garchomp and probably better than Enzoroark. Is it going to crack the top 3 right now? I think the answer to that's no. I mean, I feel like it could pass Raging Bolt. I think those are almost slightly interchangeable. I think some of that's just dependent on how you play and how well you are with Dragapult. So that's where we're sitting at with plain Bolt. Okay, next we are looking at Ogerpon Meganium. So this can be any variation of this. This could be with the Mega Venusaur. I think Ogerpon by itself has been slightly better, not having the 3 prize Pokemon in play. And so I think this deck is going to still have success, especially if we have a decent amount of these other decks running around that are weak to grass. I do think it's still pretty straightforward. So there's a lot of people that have success with it because they know how to play it. They've been playing it for a while or different variations. So where do I think Ogerpon Meganium is going to end up at? You know, I think it's going to be better than Alakazam because we have too many people that are teching against it. Is it going to be better than what we're seeing out of the Mega StarMe, Mega Froslass? I think the answer to that is maybe not. I think too many people know grass is out there. The Enzoroark, I think, isn't going to be as active. Um, and so if you don't hit into some of those decks that have weakness to grass, it makes your matchup a lot weaker. So I'm gonna put Teomask Ogrepon right above Alakazam in our rankings. Okay, and then next, I think a deck that a lot of us are unsure if we want to see, but we're going to, is going to be Crustle, right? I mean, my gosh, it had such a good conversion rate. Almost 50% of Crustle decks converted to day 2. It was very successful. It played really well. I think every League Cup and League Challenge I've been to recently, if there was a Crustle player, they would be successful. So I hate to say it, but I think it's going to be good again in LA. So where are we putting Crustle? I mean, it's going above Alakazam for sure. I think Tealmask Ogerpon, it's getting above. Um, and I think we got to keep sliding these down. I mean, unfortunately, it's going to keep building up on this board. Because so many of these decks don't have an answer for Crustle. So do I think Crustle is a top 3 deck? It's possible. I think right now it's sitting at 3 on our big board right now. So be interesting to see how well it fares, where it finishes at. A lot of people are going to be teching for it after how it did in Prague. So that's why I'm putting it a little bit lower, because I do think people are going to have answers and ways around it and what they're looking for. Let me grab another deck we're looking at here. This is one that I don't think gets a ton of play, but I think a lot of people like playing it. There is going to be Ceruledge EX, right? So again, if there are a lot of grass decks out there, Ceruledge has given us a great way to hit into those. It plays really fast. It plays fun. I do think people are going to have some success with it. With Crustle being out there, we can put in some other fighting Pokemon that help us with that matchup. So where do I think Ceruledge could play this upcoming weekend? Again, I certainly don't think it's going to be great. I don't know if its meta share is going to be massive, but I do think it can get a little bit of run. I think it can end up being a deck we see in day 2 a little bit more than we expect. So that's what I'm kind of looking at, I think, with Ceruledge. I think it can have a decent amount of play and some success within LA Regionals next week. Okay, and then for our next deck, this is one I'm unsure of, right? I think it's not getting played as much as we had expected. I think we thought this deck would be great post-rotation, and again, because of grass decks, Marne's Grimmsnarl just has not been getting played as much. I think we have other spread decks that are playing successfully. So where does Marne's Grimmsnarl rank for our LA ranking list? Man, I have a hard time knowing, right? I'm unsure how successful is Marne's Grimmsnarl going to be. I certainly think that it can maybe catch a few people off guard because we're not seeing it. It's not been in a ton of TCG live tournaments right now. So how high up can Marne's Grimmsnarl go? I mean, I think it's still better than Ceruledge. This is where I'm unsure. Is Marne's Grimmsnarl better than Mega StarMe Froslass or not? I don't know the answer to that. I prefer playing Froslass Mega StarMe. But there's a lot of people that are going to have more familiarity with the Marne's Grimmsnarl. I do think its weakness to grass is still going to hurt it. I think there's going to be a decent amount of people playing grass if they're looking at what they want to do meta-wise, meta matchup-wise. So it's going to go right in the middle for right now. Again, I think I still have to give it some time to decide how well it's going to do in LA, and we got to hope that we end up seeing it in some of these matchups too, because um, realistically, it just hasn't been around as much. All right, so for our next deck, we're going to be looking at the Mega Lucario EX deck. Man, I think we all were so hopeful this would be good post rotation. I think a lot of people were excited to play Mega Lucario. It's stumbled a bit because so many people are playing Lily's Clefairy. Um, Other people are running decks that can just KO 340 relatively easy. Raging Bolt just gets up to that number. Again, you're struggling against decks like the Mewtwo and Dragapults at times, and so that's what makes it hard to know where to rank Mega Lucario. Um, I still think it's going to have success. I think people like to play it, so I think we're going to see it. Um, how far up can it go on our board? I mean, unfortunately for Alakazam, I think it keeps falling, and I think part of that is too many people are teching decks against Alakazam. So I think it's going to be above Alakazam. Do I think it's going to play better than Ogerpon? Um, that's interesting to think. Realistically, I think it's better than Ceruledge. But does that make it better than Ogerpon? So I might have to make a switch here. We might swing up Ogerpon, pull down Ceruledge, and put Mega Lucario um, into that spot, right? So um, I think that's kind of where we're looking at with that deck. All right, for our next deck, we have Team Rocket's Honchkrow, Team Rocket's Porygon Z. I mean, again, this had a decent conversion rate. Um, I personally have struggled playing this deck because at times you just can't find the energy. However, being a single prize deck right now has just been so successful. It's hard to get 6 KOs within the TCG. And so this Mega Honchkrow, or the Team Rocket's Honchkrow, Team Rocket's Porygon was pretty successful within Prague. Do I think it's going to have the same success in the US, in LA? I'm unsure. I don't believe so, but we still have to be ready for it. We still have to be ready to see this deck. Because it's bad against Dragapult, I still think it's going to have a hard time finding wins in the next in the next rotation, right? Do I think it's better than Alakazam? I think the answer to that's yes. I think it's better than Alakazam because its supporters are so good. I do think it's going to be better than Ceruledge. So then when we rank it kind of up against Mega Lucario or Teal Mask Ogrepon, um, I don't know if it makes it past those or not. Um, and then I look further up at like Marnie's Grimmsnarl. Is Honchkrow going to be better? Is it a tougher deck? It could be. I do think in some ways it's going to slide above Mega Lucario and against above the Ogerpon, and he's going to be sitting pretty much in the middle here. I think he's going to have success. There's going to be people playing it that know how they want to run it and what's going to help them be successful. So I do think the Honchkrow deck is going to surprise us a little bit at LA. I think a lot of times we're looking past it. We're not worried about it at times. Um, and I do think it can find ways to be successful at LA. All right, for the next one, we have another Raging Bolt deck, but this is with Noctowl, right? So instead of the Mega Kangaskhan, Meowth, my bad, we're running Raging Bolt with the Noctowl lineup. I think what helps with this deck is you have better play into single prize decks than you do with the Mega Kangaskhan. However, I don't think it's going to play better. I think it's a little clunkier. Um, where do I think it ranks? I think it's certainly going to be above a lot of these bottom decks, right? I think the Raging Bolt still takes a lot of KOs we're not ready for. I think it's going to be better. It's going to be better than Team Rocket's Honchkrow. I think it's going to have more success than we're seeing with Marnie's. We're getting close to where I think that deck can kind of be, right? Is it going to be better than Cynthia's Garchomp? I mean, it's hard. Cynthia's Garchomp had a great showing at Prague, and I think it can again in LA as well. So I think this is where we're going to see Raging Bolt with the Noctowl. I think it's still going to be successful. I think it's going to be better than, halfway up the board. But I do think it's going to be better to play Raging Bolt Mega Kangaskhan. But none of these decks are probably doing as good as Dragapults. And that's our last deck we're looking at today. Is the winner from Prague is the Dragapult Dudunsparce, right? How good is this deck going to be? It's probably going to see more play after the success in Prague. This deck's probably going to be around, and we got to find ways to KO it. It's also good with the Dudunsparce into decks like Raging Bolt, into Zoroarks, because its first attack does so much damage to big EX decks. I think it is still going to be really good. It's going to be sliding up way up to the top, right? I think we gotta keep moving these decks down. I mean, it's going to be so good. I think people are getting some time to get some good play with it. I know at our league challenges and league cups the last few weeks, this last week, we've already been seeing it getting more play. It slides in above Raging Bolt with Noctowl. And we got to keep moving these things down, man. We got to keep bumping stuff. Now we get into the top 3, right? Is this top 3? Yeah, I mean, it's better than Crustle, better than Team Rocket. So is this going to be the top deck, right? Is it better than Team Rocket's Blaziken or Dragapult Blaziken? I mean, I think at this point, I think the answer is yes. I think the fact that it has a better answer to Crustle than any of our other decks, I think it's going to be one of our top decks, if not the top deck, when we get to LA next week. So this is what we have going for our top decks at LA Regionals. There's certainly way more other decks out there, but I think this is what we're going to see with part of the meta share. I'm really hopeful that we can find success with other decks that aren't Crustle, right? Anything but Crustle will be fine with me, right? If we see no Crustles day 2, I'm going to be stoked, right? I find it hard to believe that's what's going to happen. But so from our ranking system, Dragapult is 2 of the top 3. I think Team Rocket's Mewtwo is going to be pretty damn good. And then we got Crustle, followed by some Raging Bolt. So, I think all of these decks are going to have some success, but certainly some way more than others. So, if you guys made it this far into the video, please smash the like button. If you haven't subscribed, please go do that. We're trying to grow our channel. I love getting constructive feedback. So if you can let me know in the description or in the in the comments, my bad. If you can let me know in the comments, what do you want to see changed or different about some of our videos? I love getting feedback. And then, as always, within our videos, we just love the Pokemon community. So we really appreciate you guys for watching. Have a Poketastic day.